Are we loving shelter dogs to death? Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, welcome. If you've yet to do so, I'd love for you to click up there to subscribe, click down there to sign up for notifications, and then when you click the link further in the box below and you sign up for my newsletter, I can send you my free books and my free videos on how to heal your pets at home with my top natural remedies. I recently read this interesting article titled, "Are We Loving Shelter Dogs to Death?" The premise of the article started out with the story of a dog called Valerie, who was found thrown out of a vehicle, this black pit bull, in LA. Turned out that she was brought into emergency vet. She's pretty severely injured, severely dehydrated. Unfortunately, she died. Turned out she had a microchip, and they're able to find out, yeah, she'd actually been fairly recently adopted from an animal shelter. So on hearing that, how can you not have a pretty darn strong reaction? Like, seriously? But the author goes further and just talks about how, the prevalence of no-kill shelters, how most shelters throughout Canada, the US, have gone to trying to be a no-kill shelter so they're not euthanizing animals. But what that has meant is that there's certain areas where there's also a shortage of animals, such as the Pacific Northwest, for instance, some of the New England states. But as soon as you go to many of the poor areas, you've got these public shelters that are just completely full. And she says that every single public shelter in Los Angeles is completely full. So some are double and tripled up, meaning you've got all these animals in many of these areas that are just unable to be adopted. The author states that in the United States, still 1 to 2 million dogs a year are being euthanized, but that's dramatically gone down, from when I first looked at this, when I first started vet practice 20 years ago. It was upwards of 10 million. So then she makes the big obvious link to poverty, how, a quarter of these animals that are making it in animal shelters, they're being relinquished due to, it could be a combination of financial distress, family dysfunction. They just can't care for a dog or a cat at that time. Those animals are further ending up in these overcrowded, unfortunately, animal shelters. So I think her point of the article is just having everybody think, why is this happening in the first place, and going a little bit deeper, which I applaud. But secondarily, having us think, like, why is that? How can we not, how can there be that there could be a shortage of animals in Seattle or Vancouver, for instance, Pacific Northwest, and we can go to the southern US and you've got like these overcrowded animal shelters where they have 2 and 3 dogs meant for a cage with just 1 dog. When I first started my vet practice here in Nelson, soon after we actually started an animal shelter called Second Chance Animal Shelter, in part because I had been affiliated with the SPCA, and at the time animals were still being euthanized, so it was a bit of a moral issue with me, and in part with another staff member who was pretty keen on just really passionate about animals and adopting animals. We started this animal shelter, and it started as a no-kill shelter, and I feel really good about that. But I see sort of the dichotomy and the whole challenges and just what's fair and not fair. You got someone who's in a state where they just don't have the money. They don't have the money, so they can't afford adequate vet care, for instance. It's super expensive. Darn, don't I know it. And, their dog or their cat is sick in some way, they can't adequately care for them. So what's the solution? Darn right, it's a hard one. But to see the point where actually have animal shelters don't have enough animals, well, in some way we've got to have some better coordination where we have animals that are needed to be adopted are getting up to these animal shelters. Secondly, too, if there could be some more support for the animal shelters themselves, meaning if it's just it's privately, it's just us donating in small amounts, so they can, one, then, better screen people, two, help support people that just don't have the funds, so they can, maybe help provide some discounted veterinary care, some discounted animal care. Starting them out with food, I think would be ideal. And then 3, I think personally or individually, personal responsibility needs to be taken around. Like, you are adopting an animal, which is a huge lifelong responsibility, and those people who are adopting those animals out, being really clear around, that's being known and being said, and that this isn't. It's not like buying a some little app for your phone, right? And that you're really clear about why you're adopting your dog or why you're adopting a cat, what it's going to mean. Can you really afford it or not afford it? And if you can't, probably best not to be adopting that dog or cat. And then lastly, my other kind of play, if you're not a breeder, fine, you can wait a few years to have your dog or cat till they reach sexual maturity, but have your dog or your cat spayed and neutered. We have far less unwanted animals in the first place. Is if you're looking for a dog, you're looking for a cat, by all means, first look to the animal shelter first. I mean, as opposed to looking at some designer breed, which are awesome. There's some great little designer dogs out there. But I'm just encouraging you to make that part of your search too. Thanks again, you guys, for watching this edition of Veterinary Secrets. I'd love for you to click up there to subscribe. Click down here to like this video. And then when you click the link further in the box below, I can send you my free book and my free videos on how to heal your pets at home with my top natural remedies.